Texas Lutheran University.
Here's our introduction for our speaker this evening. When instructional technologist Rodrick Shao moved to the United States from Tanzania 2 decades ago, he saw endless opportunities. Shao says he was given an unexpected career opportunity. The top executive of the company he was at saw his potential and agreed to help him advance his career. But there was a single condition. One day, he must help someone else. For the past 10 years, but that was in 2011, so now for the past 15 years.
Correct.
Shao and his wife, Belly, have been raising money and awareness for orphans in Tanzania. His time in the U.S. showed him just how much he was offered. Things as simple as food, shelter, and education are sometimes taken for granted, and he wanted to give back all he had been given. Like many African nations, Tanzania faces great poverty, Shao said. Our hearts go out to the children, especially those who are orphans. The AIDS epidemic has wiped out a generation of young parents. Their children are now the responsibility of society, and we wanted to share the stories of these children. While many orphans have lost their parents, some are also HIV positive and others have disabilities. Although the community rallies around these children, they struggle to provide for them since they themselves live in poverty. Shao works with the Lutheran Church in Tanzania, setting up monetary funds and donations for school supplies and even livestock. And this time in the last 7 years, but again, this was 5 years ago. At that time, in 2011, over $35,000 had been sent from funds collected through this university in the community of Seguin. Quoting again Dr. Shao, he says, "I encourage people to look at their own lives, what they have been given, and how they can return the favor. These children need books, backpacks, and financial support for medical expenses, and they deserve it." When I visited home last year, many of them came up to me and talked about TOU and Seguin. They might not know where they are, but they know that they're getting help from those places, and they're so grateful. Hearing them say thank you is the greatest feeling in the world. So tonight, I'm very pleased that Dr. Shao will share some more with us about his work with the Watoto Project.
I think very one familiar face here, I guess. Yeah, only Sydney there, and others are quite new, and I've seen you gentlemen too around, but not in my class. That sounds good. Of course, and you too, and you went to Namibia, right? I remember that. That's very good. Anyway, I'm so grateful that I have a chance to speak to you about Watoto Project, but also I'm going to focus on the background, where this Watoto live. So before we jump into the Watoto Project, which has been summarized very well by Dr. Hoffman, I'm also going to pull back and show you the background. A little bit about Africa, a little bit about Tanzania, where I came from, a little bit about some of the sightseeing or attractions about Tanzania, and then jump into Watoto life, the project itself. So that's going to be the flow of my presentation. Starting with the first slide, let's control the lights here. Here we go. Too dark, right? This is much better? This is. Oh, the back ones, yeah. Okay. Is that much better? Okay, good. Here we go. So starting with the first slide here, this is the symbol of Africa. Each time you see an occasion, this is called occasion tree, and occasion tree is the symbol of African survival. It really symbolizes that Africa has survived for centuries and centuries and centuries while facing a lot of hardship or harsh landscapes, harsh conditions. Okay, and so that tree itself, it does survive centuries and centuries despite being in a very harsh landscapes of Africa. So whenever, any time you see that symbol, it's really the symbol of survival of Africa as a continent. And also shows that Africa as a continent has contributed to the world. Yes, we have survived, but also Africa has offered a lot of contribution to the world. So the occasion tree, each time you see that, that's really what it symbolizes, survival of the African continent. Has any one of you seen that probably? The occasion tree tied to Africa? Okay, good. Now let's go to the map of Africa itself. And I'm assuming everybody is very, very familiar with this map, the map of Africa. Yes, Africa is a continent, so we want to make sure we check mark that is a continent and not a country, right? Very good, very good. And Africa has some other facts. It is the second largest continent in the world. So the first one being the continent of Asia, right? So the second largest continent in the world. Also is the second most populous continent in the world. So in terms of population, it's also second most populous continent in the world. Now, the continent of Africa has 54 countries, about 54 countries right now. That's according to my latest, stats. Sometimes those countries grow and shrink, but the latest number I have is 54 countries. So definitely it's a huge continent with a lot of countries there, 54. Now Tanzania. So we kind of try to narrow down now the whole picture from the African continent and then Tanzania. Going back to the second slide, here is Tanzania, right there. There's Tanzania. So we are on the east coast of Africa. Okay, so now let's go to Tanzania. There is Tanzania. We are surrounded by a number of very nice, friendly neighbors. Of course, Kenya is the first one. So Kenya is right there. So that's definitely not correct to say Kenya, but it's Kenya. So Kenya is right there, and then further north, there's Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, those two tiny countries there. Do you remember the history about Rwanda and Burundi, anyone? Right, the civil conflicts, right? Good. And then Democratic Republic of Congo, huge country right there, formerly known as Zaire. And then, of course, we have Malawi. And then there's a country of Zambia. This is Zambia right here. Mozambique, south of Tanzania. And, of course, the whole Indian Ocean right there. So that's what those other countries that are around Tanzania. Now, where I come from is from this region here. The region called the Kilimanjaro. That's the Kilimanjaro region. Very close to Kenya. So we go to Kenya, or Kenyans come to Tanzania very often through the border right there. How about that? How about Texas? How about the size of Texas over what? Over the map of Tanzania. So look at that. This is Texas. That's definitely Texas. The great state of Texas is huge. Definitely huge. And there is Tanzania right there. So Tanzania is about 1.36 times the size of Texas. So definitely Texas is a huge state. No kidding. You could drive for about 8, 10, maybe 11 hours. You are still in Texas. It's definitely a huge state. And of course, that's about in terms of size and population. 50 million people. The size or the population of Texas, anybody knows any guess? Where are we ranging as far as the population in Texas? 26, yeah, exactly. 26 to us, yeah, that's the population of Texas. And here, of course, in terms of population, we're the 25th largest populous country in the world. And in terms of size, we're the 31st in terms of size in the world. So it is kind of a big country out there, although there are many other big countries out in the African continent and other places. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about independence. Independence in Tanzania. We earned independence in 1961. Tanzania was colonized for a long time by Germans. So Germans were there for a very long time. Unfortunately, none of Tanzanians speak German. So we did not inherit that. So, and up to date, not quite sure why we didn't keep that or why we didn't, pick up from that. But the Germans were there for a very long time. And then later, the British took over under the US mandate. And the British were there for quite some time until 1961, December 9th, when we earned independence. Okay? So it was a big thing. And the man who is holding the poster says Independence 1961. All Tanzanians love him. We adore him. He was our first prime minister, our very own prime minister, and his name is President Mwalimu Nyerere, Julius Kambarage Nyerere. So Mwalimu means a teacher. He used to be a teacher. And even when he became the first prime minister, he told all Tanzanians, call me Mwalimu. I'm still Mwalimu. So all Tanzanians, till to date, they still address him as Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere, teacher. And he was truly a teacher, a very good man. But he was the first prime minister. He comes from further north of Tanzania, President Nyerere, the late President Nyerere. Okay, the background here. Pay attention to this. Tanganyika. So here's a map of what is now known as Tanzania, but it was formerly known as Tanganyika. So even when we earned independence in 1961, we were still known as Tanganyika. And Tanganyika really means, is a direct translation of Tanganyika, is like wandering in the wildebeest. Wandering in the wildebeest. That's Tanganyika. So that's the traditional name. In 1964, Tanganyika and the Zanzibar island united. So we became one country, and then the name Tanzania. So the Tanganyika kind of dropped that Nyika. We kept the Tang, and Zanzibar from Tanzania. So then when we had the unity between the Tanganyika and the Zanzibar island as a United Republic of Tanzania, then we had our first president. Now from Prime Minister, Mwalimu Nyerere became the first president of Tanzania. Presidents, yeah, I can tell. I was looking through the list here from Mwalimu Nyerere. There's Mwalimu Nyerere right there. Mwalimu Nyerere. I was going through the list of all the presidents we've had so far, and they're all men, right? So I'm hoping one day in my list, I'm going to add a female somewhere there. I'm hoping that will be the case. Actually, last year we had a presidential election, and we had 2 females contesting for that. So we are making some strides, and I'm looking forward to that. All right? So that's the list of the presidents that we've had so far. And he is our current president, of course, elected from last year, but the first president right there, Mwalimu Nyerere. The reason why I have this list here, I have a story behind it. Remember I told you that Tanzanians adore President Nyerere. There are 2 reasons I want to share with you. You have heard of many stories in Africa where countries tumble into conflicts a lot, killing each other a lot, trying to defend our domains a lot. So there are civil war. That's the story we hear most of the time. What's the reason for that? And why Tanzania hasn't experienced that yet? So that's a good question. So we are very lucky in Tanzania. We are very, very peaceful. And we're still crossing our fingers that we don't tumble into fighting and killing amongst ourselves. So why we haven't got there? Definitely there were some foundations that placed behind. There were reasons. And the reasons are, of course, giving credit to President Mwalimu Nyerere. He had a vision. When he took power and he said, you know what? He looked around the country and said, Tanzania is a big country. There are so many tribes. I'm going to show you those tribes. So many languages. That's very good. How can you lead these people? How can they communicate among themselves towards peace, towards understanding? Because otherwise, if we cannot communicate amongst ourselves, yes, we end up doing what? Fighting amongst ourselves. So his idea, his vision was, you know what? I am going to introduce a tool that is going to be a tool for peace. And that tool is a language. So he influenced, pushed, and eventually we came up with a language, a common language for all Tanzanians. It doesn't matter which tribe you come from, which corner of the country you come from, but we had to learn from primary schools all the way through high school and also in college. And that language is known as the Swahili language. So Swahili language was used as a tool for unity, unifying the country. Because otherwise, everybody else, they have their own different languages. And now, when you look around other countries in Africa, that they are fighting themselves, a lot of civil conflicts, they don't have unity. They don't have a common language that unites them as a country. Each tribe wants to defend their own domain. So we give credit to who? President Nyerere for that. So since that time, definitely, Tanzanians, sure, we speak our own local languages, but amongst ourselves too, we speak Swahili and we understand each other, which is the key. Communication is the key for peace. Okay? The second reason, I went to school in Tanzania, I benefited free education from my primary level, secondary level, and then high school, and then college. Free education completely. And that was his vision. Now think of this Tanzania, African country, very, very poor. The government even didn't have enough money, to fund education for everybody. But this man took the risk and said, what, we need to offer free education to our people because they can't afford to pay for it. And if you want the country to develop, we need educated people. So the government has to do everything to sponsor education. I benefited from it. And a lot many other people who are very poor benefited from it. But his vision for education was this. You go to primary school from your own location, from the village where you live, from the city and town where you live. Good. And then you go to secondary school also within your own location or the place where you live. That's good. But when you go to high school, then they say, Rodrick, we are going to move you from Kilimanjaro, where it's east-north, and you're going to go to high school in south of Tanzania. And we're going to pay for everything for you. And that student in the southern part of Tanzania, we are taking that person to the west part of Tanzania. And we are paying for everything. So there was a movement or shifting of high school students from different areas of the country to other areas that they have never been before. And guess what? Because of that shifting of students, even myself, from northeast part of Tanzania, I was taken to the central part of Tanzania, and then later to the southern part of Tanzania. I got to learn the culture of those other tribes, those other Tanzanians that I've never met before, never even known how they live, what they face, and especially their culture. They are people from the same country, but guess what? If you don't get a chance to know them, you're going to end up in conflicts. But since we were moved around for education, we got to appreciate and see each other as one people in one country. And they got to learn about me, and I got to learn about them. And we could speak the same language, Swahili. I didn't have to learn their tribal language, or they didn't have to learn my tribal language. And up to date, all Tanzanians who have gone through that process, we cherish Mwalimu Nyerere. We really cherish him because although he had a number of failures, like many other politicians, those two things he did, till to date, we have peace in the country because we know each other. We can communicate with each other, and we see each other as one people. Now, what many other neighbors around us have been or have not experienced is what the gift that was given to us by President Nyerere. And that's why you hear a lot of those civil conflicts. So those are key, two key factors that led to peace, or they're still propelling peace and harmony in Tanzania. The next slide is about tribes. Did you hear me saying about tribes? Yes. There are around 125 tribes in Tanzania. So all those names out there, and I was so interested as I was looking at these tribes. Some of those tribes I've never heard of their name, but there's so many of those. A number of those I recognize. The fact about these tribes is each tribe has its own language. Good, and we still live in the same country. Super. So I'm going to take an example as my tribe. I'm a Chaga. Chaga, C-H-A-G-G-A. C-H-A-G-G-A. Chaga tribe. And the Chaga tribe come from Kilimanjaro. Good? Now, within the Chaga tribe itself, we say we have our own language. True. But within the Chaga tribe, there are different dialects. So I could belong to a Chaga tribe, but because of different dialects, somebody from one part of Kilimanjaro, when they speak, I won't even understand what they're talking about. But they are Chaga. They belong to the Chaga tribe because of different dialects. And when I speak, they won't understand what I'm talking about. Although we call ourselves the Chaga tribe, big tribe with different dialects in there. So it makes it a little bit more complicated that we have 125 tribes and each tribe has its own language, and within tribes there are different dialects. So we have that richness, the richness of language and in Africa. And now within the tribe itself also, there are different cultures. Yes, we are Chaga, but because we have different dialects, there are also different cultures within that same tribe. Very complicated, very rich, very interesting if somebody, is wanting to know more about it. But that's just a little bit about tribes in Tanzania. Okay, let's talk about languages here a little bit. I did mention to you before. Swahili or Kiswahili, right there. Swahili, Kiswahili, that's the national language, so everybody speaks Swahili. And then there is this, which is the same language, Kiunguja, really. In Zanzibar, they call Swahili Kiunguja, so it's really the same language in Zanzibar Island. So when you hear Swahili, that's a big name, very well known, but the Kiunguja is the same thing. But in Zanzibar Island, they call Swahili Kiunguja. It's the same language, okay? As far as English, yes, is spoken mainly for business administration and higher education. I would say so cautiously. Majority really don't speak English, I'll tell you. Majority don't. But of course, for business reasons and so forth, we try to learn, try to adapt it for that case, but majority speaks Swahili. Majority speaks Swahili. Here's Arabic. There's Arabic right there, widely spoken in Zanzibar. So when you go to the Zanzibar Island, yes, many Zanzibarians, they speak Arabic. There's a history behind it. The Arabs settled in Zanzibar for a very long time. Zanzibar is an island, and they thought that was a very good trade point that links between the Persians, Asians, and Africa. And so they settled in Zanzibar. And when you go to Zanzibar to date, although it's in Tanzania, the Zanzibarians look very light-skinned. Even their hair is a little different because of that influence from the Arabs, right? Yes, they speak Swahili, but it's like being here in Texas, where you speak English in Texas, but as you're driving around, you see how the language changes, right? The same way. So they speak Swahili, but in a different tone, the way they speak Swahili, okay? But of course, Arabic. When you go to Zanzibar during Ramadan, is anybody aware of Ramadan? Ramadan is when the Muslims fast, right? So they don't eat at all for 12 hours, right? Can you do that? Boy, that's a challenge. When you go to Zanzibar, the same thing too. They honor that. During Ramadan, when you're walking around the street, you can't even have your nice, delicious hamburger. Like we in Americans, we can eat anywhere, any place, right? And enjoy that. Not in Zanzibar during that time. So you have to honor that. So they have inherited a lot of that Islamic culture in Zanzibar. And of course, down here is the tribal languages I've shared with you. Kilimanjaro. Did you hear that I said I come from the region called Kilimanjaro, right? Kilimanjaro. And there's a good reason why the region is called Kilimanjaro, because of Mount Kilimanjaro. Have you heard of Mount Kilimanjaro, anyone? Number of you? Yeah, Mount Kilimanjaro. Have you climbed Mount Kilimanjaro? That's a challenge. That's a challenge. Yes, not yet. That's a challenge. How about me taking you there, right? We can arrange for that. Mount Kilimanjaro. It stands about, I think, over 19,000 feet, if I remember correctly. If you convert it into meters, maybe over 5,000 meters. So it is the tallest mountain in Africa. Sometimes we like to call it the peak of Africa. Of course, you can see snow throughout the year, although Tanzania is in the tropical zone, just a little bit below the equator. But snow is always there throughout the year because of the altitude, and it's very cold. So I was born on the slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro. So there's Mount Kilimanjaro. Here's a glacier, very huge, very huge. And that's Mount Kilimanjaro as well. You can see snow is depleting right there due to the theory of global warming for that case, all right? And so there's a good link between me and the Kilimanjaro, and the Mount Kilimanjaro. Now, you see the snow here, and there's water there. This snow is a source of water for the people who live on the slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro. It's heavily populated, densely populated area. And most of them depend on what? Snow as a source of water. So when you think about global warming and what's happening with the depletion of snow up here, and think about the future of that generation, it's challenging for that case. Mount Kilimanjaro. Okay, some of the highlights of Tanzania. I know we are still thinking and waiting about this Watoto Project thing. But before we hear that, where do these Watoto live? What do they have in their country, right? What are the interesting sites? Here is a Serengeti National Park. Now, has anybody heard about Serengeti? Right? Have you, good, thank you. Have you heard about, hey, we want to go to a safari, African safari? Have you heard about the term African safari? So each time you hear African safari, really what they mean is right here, Serengeti National Park in Tanzania. That's Africa safari. And we have amazing parks. We have amazing parks in Tanzania. One of them is Serengeti. Now we have these animals here, the wildebeest. But what is interesting about the wildebeest in Serengeti is what is known as the Great Migration. Here's the Great Migration. So if you Google, you have time and you Google about the Great Migration, in Tanzania, or Serengeti Great Migration, you're going to see even some other nice YouTube videos about the Great Migration. And usually you find wildebeest, zebras, gazelles, and many other animals, over 1 million animals migrating from the Serengeti National Park all the way, plunge into the river, and they're going all the way to Kenya. It's called the Masai Mara, Kenya. That's the Masai land in Kenya. So they cross the river and the border from Tanzania all the way further north to the country of Kenya. And they're just looking for green pasture. So it's something that just happens naturally with them. But it's a huge, huge migration. It's one of the wonders of the world, if you look at that, definitely. And it's quite a scenery. And usually the migration happens between the month of July and October. So between July and October, you're going to see the huge migration of animals from Serengeti all the way to the Masai Mara, Kenya area. Other highlights. Here we go. This one is the NGORONGORO Conservation Area. NGORONGORO. There's a reason why I have this one here. The NGORONGORO crater, right there, this is the crater, was formed by the volcanic action. This is the volcanic activity. Okay, and this was what they call the mouth of the volcano. So it kind of sank completely down. I've been there, very, very beautiful, the NGORONGORO crater. And it's also in the Serengeti plain. So when you go, and if you are in Serengeti, you're also going to be able to see the NGORONGORO crater. So a lot of Americans, Europeans, Asians, when they go to Serengeti, they go to NGORONGORO crater as well, here. So it's a historical place in Serengeti. Olduvai Gorge. Olduvai Gorge, oldest evidence of mankind's evolution. All right, this is really cool. Olduvai Gorge is in Tanzania, and it's in the NGORONGORO crater. So now we know about the NGORONGORO crater that was formed by the volcanic activity or eruption. But also there's a history or theory that we have had so far about the first, the first skulls that were discovered, or the first fossils that were discovered, that points to the oldest fossils. That's a theory. There are many theories out there. This is one of them. But definitely this was the discovery by Dr. Leakey. Dr. Leakey and his wife, Dr. Leakey, they used to live in Kenya at that time, and they were doing some research, Dr. Leakey. But that's Olduvai Gorge in the NGORONGORO crater. And that place is very well preserved by the government. So when you go to Serengeti, you go to the crater. Also, Olduvai Gorge is right there, a nice place to visit. So if I take this theory, if I believe in this theory, the evidence of mankind's evolution, so I came from Tanzania, right? That's where the first man came from. You too came from Tanzania. I could claim that. If I go with the theory, you too came from Tanzania, right? Yeah, if you go with that theory. So it's very interesting if you think that way. But that's it. But it's a nice place, a very neat place to go and see, Olduvai Gorge. Okay, TARANGIRE National Park. That's another national park. TARANGIRE is the 6th largest national park in Tanzania. Lots of elephants and zebras and so forth. And when I take my kids also to Tanzania, they've been in Tarangire several times, and the other national parks, not all. They've been in Serengeti as well. This summer we are planning to go Tanzania as well, but I'm going to take them to different parks, which I'm going to show you some pictures here. But it's a very interesting park in Tarangire. This is the 6th largest park. Has another park, Silas Game Reserve. This is in the southern part of Tanzania. The Silas Game Reserve is one of the very interesting. I think has what is known as the largest fauna. You know what's the fauna? The largest fauna, just like for the plants is flora, yeah, and then for the animals it's fauna. Is that correct? Is that fauna? Is that correct pronunciation? Fauna, yeah. So here's the largest, fauna preserves. So it's a very, very interesting place to go there. Silas Game Reserve, again, some of the features of Tanzania. Here we go. How about this? Here's an island, guys. I'm just ready to take a trip with you. How about that? Okay. You just cannot resist this, especially during summertime. But here's the deal, though. Pay attention to the name of the island. Yeah, that's very interesting. So if you're trying to promote this island, you want to tell people to go to Mafia, go like, what? Are you serious, Mafia? You got me. I mean, how did we, land the name? I have no idea. I've been asked so many times, why is the island called Mafia? But of course, you can if you tie that to what we know about Mafia in Italians, it's again, of course, with a lot of history behind it. But beautiful island, in the Mafia Island. It is part of a series of islands we have in Tanzania because of the mainland Tanganyika, Zanzibar Island. So there are a series of islands, and the Mafia is one of the series of islands we have between Tanzania and Zanzibar. Okay? Okay, so here we go. This is the largest national park in Tanzania. It's called Ruaha. Ruaha is the largest national park in Tanzania. Extremely beautiful. It is on the southern part of Tanzania. And I have never been there before. I'm planning to take my family there this year, but it's one of the largest ones. And it always stays green just like that with some very beautiful trees and plants and animals. It's called Ruaha National Park. Let's switch gears now, something else different. More back to mountains. As a Mount Meru, Mount Meru is an active volcanic mountain. Mount Meru right there, very active. It's in the northern part of Tanzania, a region called Arusha, just next to Kilimanjaro. And then here is a really erupting mountain here. This one is called Oldonyo Lengai. That's the Maasai language, the mountain of the gods. That's what the Maasai call it. When they saw it from the tradition, this mountain is burning, is actually erupting, is erupting all the time, constantly, and they say, we're going to call it the mountain of the god because it's just so mysterious, the Maasai people, all right? And when you go there today, that Oldonyo Lengai looks just like that, erupting, a very active, is very active. You're going to see just lava flowing all the time, very active volcano. Okay, so, and of course, it's very dangerous to go there by yourself. Of course, you cannot climb that mountain. You can just, look at it at a distance. For this one, people do try to climb it, but definitely it's also an active volcano mountain, Mount Meru. Oldonyo Lengai, very interesting place to see, to go as well. Look at that. Welcome to rivers in Tanzania. This is called Lake Natron. Lake Natron. Lake Natron, it looks just as red as you see there. So if I take you to Lake Natron today and we land there, you won't believe your eyes. You're going to say, Rodrick, are you kidding me? Is this a lake? Yes, it's a Lake Natron. So there's a reason why the water is all red. Okay, remember, going back to this volcanic mountain, so because of the volcanic mountains, the lava flows into the river. As it continues to flow into the river, it forms carbon dioxide. So the carbon dioxide is saltish-like and sulfur carbon dioxide. So the carbon dioxide builds up and builds up and builds up and builds up. Okay? So, and as well as sodium carbonate. The sodium carbonate builds up and builds up and builds, the sodium carbonate. So what happened here, As it continues to build up and build up the sodium carbonate, it mixes up with other minerals that comes from the volcano. And also it forms bacteria. So the reddish you see there, the red thing here is due to the bacterial activities. But also this lake natron, because of that sodium carbonate, the saltish kind of thing, if you happen to drop a dead bird or animal there, that dead bird or animal is going to be preserved for a long, long, long time because of the sodium carbonate activity. Salt preserves. Salt preserves. So if that happens, it preserves everything there. Now, when you think of the Egyptian history, Egyptians, mummification, the mummies, they use sodium carbonate to keep them for a very long time, to preserve them. Sodium carbonate. The same activity goes or also happens at Lake Natron. Mummification due to sodium carbonate. Okay? But it's very interesting when you go there and you see part of the water, like far back, is just clear and normal, and then there's a good portion of the water is just total red. It's very scary when you look at it, very scary. It's, bloodish like or something like that. But that's just natural formation, Lake Natron, northern part of Tanzania. Anybody seen anything like that before, maybe? No? Okay. Right. Lake Natron. Here's Lake Victoria. I'm sure you've heard about Lake Victoria, right? Yes, Lake Victoria, the second largest lake in the world. Is that correct? Yeah. Freshwater, right? Freshwater lake. Yeah, freshwater. When the first one, you guys know geography better than me, maybe Lake Superior. Is that correct? Maybe you can help me with that, but that's the second. Yeah, okay? And of course, Lake Victoria covers northern Tanzania, southern Kenya, and southern Uganda. So it's a very, very huge lake. But also, it drives a lot of economic activities in all three countries and people who live around Lake Victoria. Fishing is big and many other economic activities. Another one is Lake Tanganyika. Lake Tanganyika kind of inherited our old name, Tanganyika. So Lake Tanganyika, it is the second deepest lake in the world. Second deepest lake. I've been there myself, I remember. And how did I get here? Because it's far from Kilimanjaro. It's close to Zaire, so west part of Tanzania. I got there because I went through the military in Tanzania. Because after finishing high school, it was mandatory to join the military. No question. No, there's no option to say, you know what, I choose not to go. No. You finish high school, and then before you go to college, it's mandatory to join what? The military. And you serve the military for at least 1 year before you go to college. So due to that, then I was taken to a camp in this part of the country, and that's where Lake Tanganyika is. So we used to go there swimming, waste our time or hide from some of our commanders and so forth. But it was a beautiful place. But it's the deepest lake in the world, and there are lots of crocodiles too. So the local people used to warn us quite a bit and say, we know this place, you have to be very careful, this is a safe area, other areas don't go. So the local people knew very well about this area. Lake Tanganyika. Let's talk a little bit about Zanzibar. How does Zanzibar look like? And of course, it's an island. Zanzibar, as I said, that most Arabs were there for a long time, but also before the Arabs came, the Portuguese were in Zanzibar for a very long time. Again, they were doing trade. So when the Arabs found that Zanzibar is an ideal place for trade, then they invaded the island. But the Portuguese were there, and they started fighting. And somewhere around 1690 something, they took over the island. So the Arabs took over the island from the Portuguese because they wanted to maintain it. When they took over the island, they built this fortress. So this fortress you see here is still there today as a historical monument. Was built by Arabs after they conquered the Portuguese. It was a defensive structure for them to protect Zanzibar Island. And it's still there. So anytime you go to Zanzibar, they're going to be talking about we hear about the old fort. Yes, you're going to see that in Zanzibar. Here's an interesting thing. I mentioned to you that Zanzibar was populated or was influenced by Arabs. And Arabs, of course, they have the Islamic faith or Islamic culture. So when you go to Zanzibar, they speak Arabic, and also about 99% of the population are Muslims. in Zanzibar. The interesting thing about Zanzibar here is that there is a section in Zanzibar, a place in Zanzibar. Here's a mosque for the Muslims. And then they have a synagogue for the Jews, the same place. And of course, a Catholic church right there. And they share the same corridor. They share the same corridor. So that's very interesting when you go to Zanzibar. It's like at this time, that's exactly what we need because we can't get along, all right? But when you go to Zanzibar, they share the same corridor, the same path. But you got a synagogue here, you got a mosque, and you have a church right there. And they live harmoniously. So it's a very, very interesting fact about Zanzibar when you go there. Okay. It's something to look for if in case you get a chance to go to Zanzibar. Okay. How about this? Now, how about this? Tanzanite gemstone. And I know everybody will fall in love with that. Let me hear from you. Yeah, definitely, yeah. So why is it called Tanzanite? It comes from Tanzania. The only place that we can find Tanzanite is Tanzania. And of course, it's blue in color with a touch of purplish. Okay, and of course, we go to any gem store here, we look for Tanzanite, you find it, you ask for the price, they'll tell you the price and so forth, but definitely is something cool. But we are proud of it because it comes from Tanzania. Don't anybody fool you that Tanzania comes from anywhere else. No, it comes from Tanzania. Okay, so we are very proud of that. Very precious metal for us. Let's talk about food a little bit. What do we eat? And what is happening? So Tanzanians, we mainly eat, what is that? Corn. In Tanzania, we call it maize, right? Maize, so it's maize. So maize or corn is one of the main staple food. And we eat quite a bit. We eat it, we cook, we grind it, so in a powder format, and then we cook it as porridge. And then you add more powder and more powder, and eventually it becomes very stiff. So it's kind of stiff porridge-like. No longer just a liquid, you keep adding more and more and more powder and then it becomes very stiff. Once you have it stiff, then you can eat your, what they call ugali for that case, or fufu in the West Africa. You eat that with maybe some other vegetables, or beef stew, or milk, or beans, or anything else you want to. It's a very common food, very common food. So definitely maize, corn, very common food in Tanzania. Of course, beans right there. And then here's another one. Can anybody tell me what this is? Banana tree. That's banana, right? Banana tree. So lots of banana. We eat banana as a staple food as well, not as a fruit. We cook green banana. We stew it, okay? Broil it, you roast it, and we eat it. So we don't wait until it turns yellow. Typically here, once it turns yellow, and then of course we buy it as a fruit. There is the main food, banana. And even during, any kind of family festival or religious festival, those are main dishes. Banana is the main dish. Main dish, banana and rice. And of course, do I have rice? Yeah, rice right there. Rice is the main dish. And then cassava. Have you heard of cassava, right? Cassava is also one of the main big dishes. And here I have, this is a millet. And how about coffee? About coffee. Again, coffee I think is one of those, typically in Tanzania, farming is not like here in Texas. Texas, we have huge, big farmers with a lot of very big, expensive equipment, right? In Tanzania, it's completely the opposite. Very small subsistence farming. Very small size, very, very small size. And those small size are the ones supporting the families. Okay, we don't have much capital. We can afford to buy those huge equipments, but the economy is driven by small farmers in Tanzania. And that stays true for many African countries. Farming is big, it's a huge thing that drives the economy. And they're not large scale, they're small farmers to support their families and so forth. So coffee, definitely a lot of farmers grow coffee for the reasons of when they sell coffee, they get money. Once you get money, then you can do you can consume it the way you want. But also the government is looking for that coffee production in order to export coffee and as a means of earning what? Hard cash or American dollar. So you can trade among countries, okay? That's coffee. And of course, many other products, as far as the food and other products that in Tanzania. How about this one here? Livestock. Not only in Texas that we have cowboys, we also have cowboys in Tanzania, right? Yeah, of course, as you can see there, typical cows in Tanzania, of course, sheep, of course, and here, if they test very different. And do you know the reason why they test a little different, or maybe very different? The meat tastes very different because they tend to eat natural products a lot. Even chicken, when you eat chicken in Tanzania, it tastes very, very different because of that natural food that they are fed, for that case. It's one of those things. But it's typically, this might change. It might not stay the same for a long time because also we are changing. The economy is changing. We're also integrating other, other measures that have been taken by many developing nations, for that case. So things are changing little by little, but the tradition also is still there. This farming, which also includes livestock, drives the economy of local people. That's when the family sells a cow or a sheep, then they can take care of their family needs, take their children to school, or maybe do any other projects they want to do so. So definitely these are the pillars of the economy for the local people. Okay. Here is Dar es Salaam. Dar es Salaam is the commercial city of Tanzania. So you can picture poverty, all right? And then all of a sudden, then there is a city like this one here, which is more reflective of the Western culture, the way you see like that. So, but this is the commercial city. It's not the capital city, it's the commercial city. And it's known as Dar es Salaam. And Dar es Salaam means a peaceful harbor, okay? Salam, have you heard of salam? Shalom, shalom, salam, peace, the same name. So Dar es Salaam is a harbor of peace. Swahili has a lot of Arabic words, about 40%. So for people who speak Swahili, they can also hear a lot of Arabic. Okay? And that's the Dar es Salaam. It's a commercial city. I don't like living here too, I can tell you that. This is just too big for me. It's just too busy, and for some reason I just don't enjoy that. But there are people, everything goes there, Dar es Salaam. Okay? Okay, but now the capital city of Tanzania is Dodoma, D-O-D-O-M-A, Dodoma. And Dodoma is right here, just kind of highlighted. Dodoma is right there. That's Dodoma, okay? Dar es Salaam is somewhere out here, Dar es Salaam, but Dodoma is right there. That's the capital city of Tanzania. It used to be Dar es Salaam, and then it was moved to Dodoma, towards the center of Tanzania. And this idea also came from Mwalimu Nyerere, the father of the nation, okay, the founder of the nation. And the reason was, it's good to have the capital city towards the center of the country just for protecting the capital city, not to be very vulnerable for that case. So here's Dodoma, but let me tell you a story about Dodoma, D-O-D-O-M-A. Dodoma is a tribe, so they have tribes in there, in Dodoma. And what happened, how they came up with this name Dodoma, was a dry land for a very long time. And they kept on praying for rain and rain and rain, just like exactly we're getting here right now. Okay? Eventually, they got rain, but they got too much rain. Just exactly what is happening right now, even in Houston. We heard about what's happening in Houston. So one morning when they woke up, they found a huge elephant stuck in the mud, and that elephant couldn't get up. It was so huge. And whenever the elephant tried to get up, was just completely just going down. Instead of getting up, was just going down, stick because of the heaviness and so forth. And in their language, as the elephant kept on going down, sinking and sinking, in their language is the elephant idodomie. The elephant is sinking, idodomie. And that's the origin of the name Dodoma. All right, so there's a history behind that. Okay. All right. What's that?
Save the elephant.
Oh, saving the elephant? I believe that's a good question. I believe they did. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good thing to find out if they saved it or not. If they didn't, maybe they ate it. Right? All right. All right, but here is where my heart is, the children, right? That's the whole thing. That's where my heart is, the children, the Watoto. And each time I think about them, Each time I think about what can we do, what could I do or give back to my country based on what I've shared with you so far and what I went through so far. But guess what? There are still people. That's the resource. And these children go to schools just like what you see, those buildings behind them. Those are typical schools in the village. They're not in good shape whatsoever. And especially these ones are very lucky. Some of them, they still go to school under the trees. That's the fact. That is the fact. Very painful, sometimes very shameful, but that's the fact. But we're facing it. And since I know this, always I reflect back to the Watoto. Is there anything we can do or I can do for these children? Because when I see their faces, I see myself. I was there. And I was just like them, not different whatsoever. All right? And due to that, if I see myself, if I see my kids are here, then I have to do something. Because they did so much for me. Remember, I shared with you, my education was free, was funded by my government, although we didn't have that much. Of course, they are not getting that free education here as I cherished that time. The government can pitch in a little, but the rest, parents have to do it. So that free education is no longer there. The new president I shared with you, he's now trying to bring it back because he knows and he sees the value of supporting those poor families. So he vowed during the election and he said, I'm going to do this. And sure enough, he's trying to do it back, to give it back as far as the gift of teaching children. So those are the faces. And here we go. Here's another sample of boys in their home village. A typical home village. Those are mud houses, as you can see, in remote areas. So they're not the typical, type of blocks that we used to see here. Those are actually mud houses right there. And these kids, as you see, most of them, they're orphans. So these are the kids that are being taken care of by maybe siblings, or maybe an older lady, grandma, that happened to be there, or maybe an aunt around. And as Dr. Hoffman shared with you, most of them, their parents are no longer around, mainly due to AIDS epidemic. Okay, and these are the ones that they always try to reflect back, not only reflecting back, but sharing with others like you, or the city of Seguin and other friends, and anybody else, telling the story of the people where I came from, and see how we can become part of their lives. Because yes, we can. We've done it already, made a huge difference to them. We cannot help everybody, but to me, helping one child is too many. Is helping even one child, to me, hallelujah, is too many. If we can help more, it's a blessing. But even one child makes a big difference. And that we've done that. We've done that through your support. We've done that through the Watoto Project. That here at TLU, we have the Watoto module, where the students are involved in learning the lives of the orphans in Tanzania, learning the history of Tanzania, as we went through here, a little bit of background, where we came from, and also how they could make a difference to these children. And we have made that big difference. Here's the thing. I don't know those kids, most of them. I don't know. So I need to have a trustworthy third party out there, somebody who knows those kids, can identify them for sure in the village. And that's what the Lutheran Church in Tanzania does, because they have a local people in those villages who can identify the real families that needs help. Because here I am as Rodrick, I'm only the voice of the little kids in Tanzania. I know what they need, but I cannot identify them. But there are people in Tanzania who are doing the legwork for us to make sure that those gifts and that support gets to the right people. Because we have to realize that in this world, corruption is always around. That's a reality. And if we're not careful, even the little effort we do here could disappear somewhere else. And we don't want to do that. And that's when I worked with the Lutheran Church in Tanzania, that was the best route, was the best means to reach out to the kids. And as was shared before, most of these kids from their families, they need good shelter. Well, at least to stay away from those mud houses, okay? They need good food. Some of them eat only once a day. So then you start thinking, what is going to be the next meal, the next day? It's a puzzle. But think of yourself, as myself, I think, very privileged. 3 meals plus 4 meals if I want to, including snacks, right? That's where it goes. Now, 1 meal a day is tough, and expecting that child to go to school and even concentrate, even hear what the teacher is talking about, is not going to happen. And the school environment itself probably is not that conducive, right? So those factors are always there, and that's what they always reflect back about that. The same kids also need medical help. Yes, they get sick, just like a normal human being, but for the kids, especially those who are infected with HIV, or they inherited that from their mothers during birth, because that's one of the means, then they need extra medical help. Well, the funds we're generating here helps them with that as well, for the medical help. Okay? And of course, the other big factor that we also try to focus for these kids is education. You can give them all the help, but they need education, because that's going to be the only means for them to put themselves out. And therefore, some of the funds also coming from the awareness and from the friends and people like you, it helps them with their education. So the allocation of all these needs to those Watoto, to the orphans and many other families, some of them are not orphans, but they live in a typical, very economic hardship. So you cannot discriminate. Hey, you're not an orphan, therefore I'm not going to take care of you. No, there's no discrimination. Immense economic hardship, you will be helped. And also the funds do not discriminate based on religion. So it could be a Muslim, a Christian, a Buddha, a Hindu, whatever faith you have, yes, they get helped. So those are some of the stipulations that we have put together that we know to want to make sure there are no discrimination to which child gets help and so forth. Although most of the funds are generated by Christian-based, friends and families and so forth, funds do not, and that's our policy. Helps everybody. Okay. Okay, this is showing again some of the medical helps that these kids are getting. And of course, a lot of family members who have been left behind, they pitch in, they try to support, but of course, it doesn't, reach, it's not enough for that case. Sometimes congregations from churches, also they do those fundraising to reach out to those kids. It helps, everybody pitches in. Sometimes the government does too. It pitches in, but I tell you what, most of it comes from foreigners. When I say foreigners, it means support from outside the country, like you. That's how you reach those people and make a huge difference to their lives. Big, big difference. As Dr. Hoffman shared with you, when I go home, and they're always so happy to see me, and they always ask me about what's Seguin. Can you think of out of anywhere else in the world, when a child asks you about the Seguin, it's like, how did you know about Seguin? Yeah? Ask me about New York, right? Big name, New York. Los Angeles, California, yeah, big name. Seguin? Yeah. Very, very curious, but they're also very sensitive to it because it means a lot to them. They've heard over and over and over, not only hearing, they've benefited from what comes from Seguin, from what comes from TLU. So they know TLU. Those are acronyms that you don't expect a child to even say that before you, because they know that that's how impactful the support that we extend to them. So I'm always very grateful for what we have built up here. We hope we're going to make it a tradition. And by making a tradition that we partner with the community members, because there are a lot of community members here that they support us as TLU. We have a Spirit of Joy Lutheran Church. Many of their congregation members are supporting us. Faith Lutheran Church, they do the same thing too. Many other individuals that I don't have to mention their names, they do the same thing. We have another congregation in Austin, Prince of Peace Lutheran Church. They also join us for that. So it's a very collective effort. But during the Watoto module, as we go through the Watoto module, students themselves, they learn about their roles, what they can do in their own communities, all right? The community we're serving in that module is far away from us. Is in Africa, in Tanzania, that's very true. But guess what? The experience of serving this community starts with the local community right here, because we have also a reflective image of what kids go through here in Seguin. It's not that much different from what kids go through in Tanzania. You're going to find the similarities are there. We live in Seguin, very beautiful campus, but the neighbors around Seguin here, there's a lot of poverty around, a lot of kids needs around. And how we can respond to these kids who are just our neighbors, the same way we can respond to these kids who are quite far away from Seguin. So they learn how their roles could be implemented, how they can make an impact to the lives of the children, and also how to communicate with community members. We have several committees. There's one committee for just planning the events, the kickball tournament. And we have another committee for just fundraising committee. Another committee for for advocating, where they go out there and talk to different people about why are we doing this. But as we are doing all this, they're also learning the process of being involved in the community. So when they come out of TLU, you go to your own community, hopefully you can continue the same tradition of thinking of how you can become part of the community member and help or respond to their needs as well. And really that's really the focus of the module, although the main target is the orphans in Tanzania, but also what a difference you can make in your lives here. And I'm hoping one day, this is what I've shared with others, community members. I was talking to them. I was hoping if Rodrick is no longer around, I'm hoping this tradition will continue to link what we can do here to the people in Tanzania. So it's no longer Rodrick, but it's already a partnership between Seguin, TLU, and Tanzania, supporting the lives of the children. Any question for me? Any question for me? Let's see. Still some of the faces, more faces of the kids and the orphans. Okay. And there's the kickball tournament, of course, the highlight of the kickball tournament. And here we go. What is Asante? What is Asante? Thank you. Yeah, Asante, thank you. That's right. Asante, thank you. Very good. Yes, any questions for me?
So just to clarify,
yes.
Like the Watoto Project isn't like a nonprofit organization, it's just like you and your efforts to raise money to send to the Lutheran Church there.
It's not a nonprofit organization, but the entity that handles the funds in Tanzania is a nonprofit. Okay. Yeah, that is working with the Lutheran Church in Tanzania, yes. But I don't have a nonprofit organization myself here. I'm just a conduit to how we can help the children. But there is an official nonprofit organization in Tanzania that really focuses on Watoto and their needs, affiliated with the Lutheran Church in Tanzania. Okay. Mm-hmm. Any other question? Yes, tell me your name.
My name is Kara.
Kara, thank you. Mm-hmm.
My question was about the military. You said that
yes.
you joined for a year after high school. Was that men and women? Or
Yes, you're right. Both boys and girls. No option. So no option. And we went through a very interesting experience, I can tell you. We didn't like it at first, everybody, because we know it's mandatory. When somebody is forcing you to do something, you tend to back off and say, I don't want this. Give me the choice, right? Yeah, and that's the reaction too. And everybody hated that. And we went to the military. It's a whole different lifestyle. So military lifestyle is different from civilian lifestyle. And we just didn't like that. It was very hard. And to them, they tell you one policy: everything is possible. Everything is possible. There's no way we're going to say, I can't do this. So everything is possible. But towards the end, once we graduate, go back and ask the same people, what do you think about it? And say, man, I cherish it. It was the best experience ever. And that's what everybody says. You know what? I'm thankful that I went through the military experience. It's very different. It teaches you more about your country, how to defend your country, how to become more independent. It challenges you in life that when you think is no, there's a possible yes. So keep on going. Keep on going. Don't settle for it can't happen. So it was a very good experience, and which we all cherish that. And definitely, yes, it was mandatory for both boys and girls. And we did everything the same. Everything the same. It was an interesting experience, yeah. Mm-hmm. Any other question? Yes, Dr. Hoffman.
Okay, so your education was free?
Yes.
Primarily through high
Correct.
school. And then you were talking about, but right now, part of it is not?
Yes, part of that is not.
Or how does that work then? I mean, because I was thinking it was still free, but then I heard you say.
Yeah, yeah. After a while, I think after we finished, after our generation finished, and then somehow the education system changed a little due to also the government changes for that case. And there were no enough allocation of funds for education, for free education. So they were now starting asking parents to supplement. And those parents don't have much for the case, okay? Only the few elites could afford that. And that hurt a lot of people, especially a lot of people who comes from poor families, children, a lot, big time. So they couldn't benefit and enjoy what we did. So it took a while, and up to this time, up to last year when I told you our newest president came into power, and he vowed to bring back free education. And that's exactly what he did. He definitely declared that education is now free in Tanzania. So when you go to Tanzania right now, yes, education is free for everybody. So he promised to bring it back, and definitely he's implementing it. So the question was, how are you going to fund for it? Yeah. Funding was there because people were not paying taxes, tax evasion. But he promised to say, you know what, I am going to collect taxes from everybody, and I'll do everything or every means I can to earn taxes. And I'm going to use those funds for education. That was his primary, and he's doing that. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, that clears that up.
Correct, yeah. So definitely in between here, it wasn't a good picture at all. Yeah. It wasn't, I mean, very few who could afford it really benefited. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you're taking that away and kids don't go, you lose the initiative that is so important about learning that common
Exactly,
language.
yes.
Because if they're not there,
Very much so.
learn the Swahili and then all that work to bring unity.
Exactly.
In here, we read 2 books written by Wangari Maathai. We read her autobiography, and then we followed that up with her book called The Challenge.
Okay.
Challenge for Africa. And you're going to see in your response to this, definitely, when you were talking about that, it resonated so deeply with me what we have been reading. How many of you thought about Wangari Maathai and her 3-legged stool, and she talks so much about the power of common language, culture, and of course environmental sustainability.
Correct, correct.
Since you don't have peace. Because she talks at length about when the country, when Kenya disintegrated into civil war.
Yes.
What that did.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that is your neighboring country. I mean, that would be
Yeah.
like, we know the impact of Mexico through the drug wars and what that does being so close here in Texas. But we had benefited from not having that in their country, so I think we can empathize a little bit with there in Tanzania. Yes, you have avoided that where Kenya has not.
Yes, Kenya, their biggest issue right now is tribalism. And it's killing them, tribalism, because if you belong to the Kinga tribe and he is a Luo tribe, there is no friendship whatsoever, and decision has to be done within their tribal domains. And so even it trickles down, from the leadership all the way to everybody else. Is a huge thing. And when we talk amongst Kenyans, they'll tell you, you know what, tribalism is killing us. It's completely killing them, and yeah, they're struggling with that. We have a lot of Kenyan friends here, and when we talk to them, they echo the same thing. Okay? They can't even form their own community groups here because, he comes from that tribe. Or if you come with a great idea because you belong to that tribe, and I don't belong to you, but it's a great idea, I'm not going to support you because it comes from your tribe. So it's very, very interwoven in the Kenyan society, and that becomes a huge problem with them. Although this is a great country, very nice country. Economically also, they were doing well, but now it's definitely, they're facing issues, but tribalism is important. Any question for me?
I remember Watoto, so
You know Watoto, I know you were part of it.
You keep that picture up there. Hoping that you would renew it after all these years.
Okay.
Picture, go back.
Which
The
one?
Watoto one, we're all
the
sitting
Watoto
in the
one?
kickball. I'm wearing
Oh, the kickball. Oh, that one. Yeah. She's right there, right?
There you go.
We won that.
Yeah, you won it. Yeah.
Sure did. I'm not kidding. We almost got beat by high schoolers. It was.
Was good. Was pretty good.
Yeah, but we don't get money for it, so it was for a good cause.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Very nice. Very nice. Yes, ma'am.
You're saying that Tanzania is a rather peaceful country.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say it's one of the more peaceful countries within Africa? Or
I would say so. Yeah,
I
definitely
was
say
just
so.
curious, like what other countries kind of rank up
I would
with
say so. I mean, boy, I'm trying to think. What do you think about Namibia? We've been in Namibia. What do you think about Namibia?
that? Right now, it's okay.
It's okay right now. Yeah.
But
Mhm.
like, you know, they did have with the
Civil war.
They had all
Yeah.
the conflict with South Africa.
Yeah. Hmm. Savimbi. Yeah, it has. So yeah, so I would say the most peaceful country so far is Tanzania. Many of the Arab countries, Egypt, there's nothing you can say about Egypt right now. Well, Tunisia is the same thing too. Uganda, yeah, Uganda is there, but not quite. It's in Uganda. South Africa, we all heard about who knows what's happening in South Africa. Definitely is not peaceful yet in South Africa. Mozambique, I think, yes. Mozambique, I think they're peaceful in Mozambique. Zambia as well, I think. Congo, no, there are issues going in Congo. So, yeah, it's a big issue in Congo. So, roughly, maybe some of the Western African, like Ghana, I think Ghana, they're peaceful. Yes, but economically, they're going down right now in Ghana, but they're peaceful. Nigeria, you know about Nigeria. The Boko Haram and everything else, that's definitely one of the scariest experiences we are facing right now in Nigeria, as well as Chad. And also Boko Haram, also in Chad. So that's the scary part. So they are, and Ethiopia, they are peaceful. In Ethiopia, yeah, they are peaceful. It's a very interesting country because it's Ethiopia. You know, coffee came from Ethiopia. That's origin. And Ethiopia is the first country having Christians. Yeah, in Ethiopia. So, and they're very, very peaceful. They have a very unique culture in Ethiopia. So it's a good place. I would say it's a peaceful place.
Teaching is a principal at one of the schools
Mm-hmm.
in Ethiopia.
In Ethiopia, yes.
For a couple of years.
Okay.
As a principal at one of the schools.
It's a peaceful country, Ethiopia. There's another country came from north of Ethiopia known as Eritrea, which was part of Ethiopia, is now Eritrea. And that one, not quite. So Somalia is, just keep on praying for them in Somalia because really they've suffered a lot in Somalia. Okay, so, but too sad, that's the image of Africa, that's the reality we live in. It's too sad, really. That's the reality we live in. Yeah, thank you.
Do you ever have plans of moving back to Tanzania?
What's that?
Do you ever have plans of moving back?
Yeah, I've been asked so many times the question, and they say, you know what? Yeah, one day, yes, because Tanzania is home, but of course I'm here also for my kids. So once I take care of them, I know they have some good education, they can take care of themselves. Maybe when I retire, I can go back and continue to help my people in Tanzania. But yes, I think the main reason why I'll say I'll continue to be here, I'll definitely have a family. So my kids are Americans, so they're Americans, Tanzanians, if you want to call them that way. But when we talk to them, they say, oh, no, we are Americans. I say, okay, you're Americans. Yeah. Yes, she's from Tanzania as well. Yeah, she's from Tanzania as well.
And to you,
Yep. Yeah, she was a student here and graduated from here. She took a number of classes too with Dr. Hoffman and many other professors. She enjoyed it quite a bit. Yeah. Any other question for me? Yes, we don't eat pizza in Tanzania. There's no pizza. I was anticipating that question, but
what about cookies and pretzels? And
cookies and pretzels, not quite. It's different. No, really. But for the foreigners who live in Tanzania, they cook that. Or sometimes other hotels will cook what they know foreigners like to eat and so forth. Yeah. Okay, good.
Dr. Shao, thank you so much for spending time with us. So thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
For more information, please visit tlu.edu.